What's up, people? Welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're going to be covering my initial thoughts after that race, or that election night. That was, just to put it simply, a wipeout. We're going to get into it later, especially the more contentious races, but that was a wave. And it's hard for me to sugarcoat it if you're a Republican. It was just so bad if you're a Republican. So we're going to get into it race by race, covering my predictions, how they ended up going, and we'll just see. So starting off with Pennsylvania, I had these being around like yes plus 15. No, yes plus 17. They ended up being yes plus 22. So all the judges were retained by the same margin. So not the worst prediction. And then Democrats did win their first statewide race in Pennsylvania since, I believe, 2023, which were these Commonwealth judge elections. And they actually underperformed here a bit. They ended up doing worse here than they did in 2023, which is a pretty bad sign for Pennsylvania Democrats in a night that was very good for Democrats elsewhere. But I wouldn't really use this and extrapolate it to the rest of, Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania elections, because it was pretty low turnout, all things considered, which is the same that can be said for the Georgia elections, which we'll cover next. So I was pretty close with Pennsylvania. For Georgia, I was just completely off. I'm not going to lie. I was off by I think like 18, because these are like, I expected it like to be like D plus 7. This was D plus 23, and this was like D plus 25. Just absolutely ludicrous. Democrats won Cobb County, Harris plus 15 County here by 40, which is just insane. This is just because of like how low turnout this was. Only like 1.5 million people voted, which is like a fraction of the usual voters in Georgia, but it is still just a ridiculous performance for Georgia Democrats. They flipped counties that you haven't seen go blue in decades, and just a ridiculous performance. Although this, like Pennsylvania, doesn't have much weight in terms of the state's future performances because it was just a low turnout race, but it's still crazy, and it's still two flips in the state's commission here in Georgia. Now moving to California's initiative. This was a crazy performance for Democrats. I had it at yes plus 22. They ended up winning by, it looks like they're going to win by around 30, which is ridiculous once all the votes are counted. It looks like they're putting up a similar performance to how Biden did in 2020, which is just ludicrous. I'm going to sound like a broken record in this video because of just the sheer amount of insane performances Democrats had tonight. But they're winning, for context, they're winning Orange County here by, 14? And I think this was like a Trump county in 2020. And it was only Harris plus 3 in 2024. So just a complete overperformance for Democrats, winning areas they haven't won since 2020. Largely just because a lot of the Latino areas that swung to Trump just didn't turn out here, which is kind of a lot of the story of what happened tonight. But still, like, insane. Absolutely insane. And it passed like right as polls closed. Just a ridiculous performance. And this does mean that Democrats will be able to change the map in California and add 5 more Democratic congressional districts here, which will help them in their fight for the House. Next up, we have New York City Mayor. I had this at Zoran plus 14, so I missed it by around like 5. This was a odd race because Zoran actually was very close to most predictions in terms of vote share. He got around 50%. The thing is, Andrew Cuomo just did so much better than people were expecting. People thought he would run somewhat close to Curtis Sliwa. Sliwa would get like 15%. Cuomo would do like a bit better than that, and Zoran would be at around 50. No, Sliwa only got 7.1%. I believe he came in third in Staten Island, which is ridiculous. Cuomo was only like 8 points behind Zoran in the end, which is just insane. And it's kind of an indication as to a lot of the time with someone as overtly more extreme as Zoran, it just doesn't perform, that kind of policy just doesn't perform that well overall in a general election. Whereas it might be good for rounding up the party's base. It's just not that good for winning a general election. And it was kind of a silver lining for Republicans in a night that was horrible for them. And then we've gone to the Virginia State Legislature. This was just ridiculous. Probably, I would say, the biggest overperformance from Democrats of the night. which is kind of a hot take, but they got 64 seats in the House of Delegates, which is like, imagine if Democrats net 13 seats in one Senate election in like a midterm. That is how this is, because they net 13 seats here, which is just ridiculous. They did basically as well as they mathematically could have, possibly in the night. Just absolutely insane. Again, like, Republicans didn't flip a single seat when they were favored to for a couple, and Democrats flipped 13. I can't stress that enough. That is just insane. All of Northern Virginia is now represented by Democrats here. Just an insane performance for Democrats. They were only 2 seats from a supermajority, to put in perspective how like insane this was. And it means that, yeah, they'll be able to super easily pass again the referendum to be able to change the Virginia congressional map, which we will discuss in a bit. And now moving on to the statewide Virginia races, we're going to start off with the main event because this performance explains a lot of what happened down ballot. So, yeah, Abigail Spanberger won by over 15. She won by 15.2, which is ludicrous. Like, literally, Biden won by 10 in 2020, which was a very good environment for Democrats, and he appealed very well to Virginians. The last time Democrats won by this much in Virginia statewide was 2018, with Tim Kaine, a popular incumbent, in a blue tsunami against a neo-Nazi. And yet, that was only 1 point bluer than this. The last time that a governor's race was more than 15 points Democratic was in 1985. Just take a moment to think about that. That is ridiculous. Democrats just completely overperformed here. My prediction was Spanberger plus 9.1. They won here by 15.2. So that's a 6-point miss. Absolutely ridiculous. If you look at the county shifts, Spanberger did actually pretty bad in a lot of rural areas. Sears did okay. Some actual like rightward shifts compared to 2024. The big change was in Nova, where Trump did very well. It's partially why the state was only D+6 in 2024. They just completely reverted, especially like Manassas Park, 22 points to the left, Loudoun County, 12 points, Winchester, 11 points, Fairfax, 11 points. A lot of this is partially because of the federal workers getting fired because of Doge, but also just because of Asian turnout not being as good or them regressing towards the Democrats. And the same thing can be said for Latinos here. Also, a lot of good trends for Democrats in the Richmond area, which we've known about in the past, but it's just continuing. Like Henrico County shifting to the left, Richmond being a swing to the left, a lot of Virginia Beach swinging to the left. Just an unbelievable performance for Spanberger. Generational, absolutely generational. There's no other way to describe it, honestly. And that can explain the overperformances that Democrats had down ballot. Starting off with Lieutenant Governor, Ghazal Hashimi won by 10.4, which is more than I thought Spanberger was going to win by. I had Ghazal Hashimi winning by 7.4, I believe. So a 3-point miss. And this was just because she got carried, I'm not going to lie, by Abigail Spanberger. She didn't run that good of a campaign. She didn't publicize John Reed's scandals that he had. She just didn't really do anything. And she won by a lot because she got carried. But she did win by a crazy margin herself. And yeah, like ridiculous. And then the most crazy result out of Virginia, aside from, this, Attorney General. What the hell? I had Jason Myers winning by around 1. I thought towards election day that Jay Jones might have the edge just because it looked like Spanberger was going to do pretty well. No, this was D plus 5 point, I think like 5 or 4. I can't really do the math in my head right now. Myers did insane. In fact, in a lot of areas, he did as good as Harris did in 2024 or a bit better. That is just insane. It does point to how bad he did overall, that he underran Spanberger by 10 points, but still, like, absolutely insane how he did. Overperforming my expectations by around 6 in my final prediction. And he did very well compared to how he was expected to do. But compared to how he should have done without the scandals, he did very bad still. He could have ran next to Spanberger and Ghazal Hashimi if he didn't have the scandals. But even with the scandals, he still managed to win and do as good as Harris did in 2024 just because of the turnout, just because of the environment, and just because Spanberger did so good. And now, finally, moving to New Jersey. This was probably the biggest shock of the entire night. I had it as D+1. I thought the most that Democrats could do was like D+5 or 6. Mickey Sherrill, I heard it's Mikey, by the way. I just call him Mickey. Mickey Sherrill won by 13. I didn't even think that was possible here. Some of her margins are closer to Biden in 2020 in New Jersey, which was a performance that I never thought Democrats would even close to repeat in New Jersey again. She actually matched Biden's margin in Middlesex, a 17-point swing left compared to 2024, 22 points in Hudson County, 7 points in Bergen, 18 points in Passaic. She did a bit better than Harris did in Southern Jersey, but in Northern Jersey, she just completely overperformed, especially around like the coast and like the New York border, just completely reverting how Democrats did here in 2024, largely just because of turnout among like voters that tend to swing Republican, like Latino voters, like Black voters. But still, this was just an unbelievable performance. I didn't think Democrats would even come close to for the next couple years, but she got it. And I think this affirms that New Jersey isn't really a swing state yet at all, especially when Trump isn't on the ballot and it's not a presidential year. And in an off year, I still think New Jersey is a safe Democratic state because, I mean, look at this. This was beyond any kind of expectations for me or for really anyone. And much like in Virginia, her winning carried a lot of down ballot wins for Democrats too. They actually netted a couple seats in the New Jersey legislature. And that is actually probably going to be enough for them to be able to redistrict and be able to change the congressional map in New Jersey. So because of the results today, not only are Democrats probably netting seats in California, not only are they netting seats in New Jersey, but also they might be netting seats in Virginia because the California referendum overperformed Democrats not only in 2024, but also possibly in 2020. So applying that shift to Virginia when it is showing itself to be a very blue state right now, it looks like a referendum to change the map would pass pretty easily for Democrats here. So it looks like in 3 states, because of tonight, Democrats are going to be able to gain seats because of mid-decade redistricting, further evening out their disadvantage to Republicans after the Republicans gerrymandering. So that's where we have it. I think tonight was just a complete showing for Democrats. Absolutely ridiculous. Aside from like New York City mayor and like Pennsylvania, every single result tonight was just a complete overperformance. It further shows how Democrats have the momentum now. The pendulum has officially swung, and it might be because of Trump's unpopularity. It might just be because of turnout. But a wave is building, and tonight was nothing but a blue wave. There's no other way for me to sugarcoat that for Republicans. It is just the facts. Democrats did insanely well tonight, and there's no real way to spin that. Also, this also has a lot of implications for polling because the 2 best pollsters in the nation kind of screwed up, at least a little bit. So for Atlas Intel, first of all, they were pretty spot on in New York, which was shocking because they actually, a lot of people thought they were going to be super off here, but they had Zoran +4. He only won by 8, so kind of within the margin of error. So they're kind of excused for this. But in Virginia, they had Spanberger +7. They had Jones. No, actually, they had Mayares +1. They were completely off there. And then in New Jersey, they had Sherrill +1, and it ended up being Sherrill +13. So they were completely off in both those races. This is the first real time that Atlas Intel has been off in a race. So they're no longer like the complete 100% gold standard because of this. And I expect them to lose their A+ rating. Also for Emerson, they were the 2nd best pollster in the nation, and they had Mamdani winning by 25, and that ended up being extremely wrong. They were pretty good in Virginia, though. They had Spanberger +11, Jones +2, so not that bad. But much like Atlas, they had D+1 in New Jersey, which ended up being way off. So I also expect them to take a hit in their rating. So very bad night tonight for the golden rated like pollsters. Very bad night tonight for Republicans. Very great night for Democrats across the country. They did phenomenally, and this is just a blue wave. I'm going to have to take some time to think about how this affects 2026 in specifics, but I think it really does affect 2026 a lot. I don't really think it affects 2028 because that is going to be higher turnout, unless this causes or this is a reflection of Latinos shifting to the left, kind of like how they were in 2020. But I do think in 2026, it's going to be a reflection of tonight and April 1st, because what we're seeing is in these lower turnout races, like in April 1st, like tonight, and like what 2026 will probably be, Democrats just do way better, and they are in a wave right now. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm very tired. It is like 6 a.m. right now, but I had to get this out and get my initial reaction to the results out. Yeah, insane night, and a phenomenal a phenomenal night for Democrats. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.